Ginny Thomas. Who is Ginny Thomas?
Ginny Thomas is the wife of Justice Clarence Thomas. And Ginny Thomas is also a right-wing activist. And the more that we know in the last 2 weeks or so is that she was not just present at the January insurrection, riot, whatever you want to call it, but she was actively planning it. And she was doing that planning in concert with Mark Meadows, Trump's chief of staff. So she was intimately involved. This was not, she didn't just happen to say, oh, there's a lot of people out here. I wonder what they're protesting. She knew exactly what it was, and she was intimately involved, going so far as to suggest to Mark Meadows that he needed to make it clear to as many people as he could that they needed to stop the certification of the election.
Right.
So she was deeply involved. So
Okay.
now,
Let me just clarify. She did not organize the insurrection. She or help organize the rally on the ellipse.
correct.
There's no evidence right now that she encouraged people to storm the Capitol, correct?
No, there is not. But there is evidence of her complicity, her significance in the Stop the Steal movement. So we do know that. So she was at the rally. She later said, this is a stolen election, but we don't have any, I've not seen any evidence. Maybe the January 6th committee has it, or maybe they heard it from somebody like Trump's son-in-law, who appeared before the committee for most of.
Yeah, Jared.
But no, but so the question is, what do you do if you're Clarence Thomas about recusals? Now, there's only been one case that went to the Supreme Court in the last year about on the specific question of the legitimacy of the election. It was an 8-1 vote with only Clarence Thomas saying we should hear this case, suggesting that he thought there was merit to it. So why didn't he recuse himself? Well, the popular myth that's going around on television these days is that he doesn't have to because there are no restrictions on the conduct of a Supreme Court justice. In other words, that he can do what he wants, he can recuse himself. When I was at Americans United, we did ask him to recuse himself once on a case where the party on the other side was somebody who had given him a big fancy summer vacation or fancy dinners or something. And he, of course, refused to do it. Justice Scalia, on the other hand, did, in a very important case, recuse himself. He was at giving a speech down in Virginia, and he suggested that the challenge to the constitutionality of the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag, because of the words under God in it, was silly. People called him on that. He said, I should never have said that. And I recuse myself. So it's not unknown for even conservatives to recuse themselves, but Thomas doesn't do that. But the myth is he doesn't have to. He can let his conscience be his guide. That is not true. And one of my favorite former Harvard law professors, which would not be Alan Dershowitz, but came up with a thing. He wrote a thing the other day about a statute, Title 28 of the United States Code, Section 455. Let me just read you a little piece of it here.
Okay.
It says that no justice shall participate in any cases where he or his or her spouse is known by the judge to have an interest that could be personally affected by the outcome of the proceeding. And it doesn't say that's only for lower court judges. It says judge. It uses that word, and Lawrence Tribe of Harvard says, of course it means what it says, any judge at any level. So he would he would be violating the law. He's already violated the law. Unless you really believe that Clarence Thomas and Ginny Thomas go home, watch Billions on television, or professional wrestling, or any of the other things we've talked about, and that's okay. He never talks about it. Evidence that he doesn't talk about many things came at his confirmation hearing. When he was asked about Roe versus Wade, he said, I don't ever recall talking about that case. Never talking about that case. There is nobody except the people who are asleep, during the Oscars, who don't know something about Roe versus Wade and don't talk about it. So he was clearly lying about that. Nobody called him on it. He got away with it. But if he's going to now say, "Oh, I know I did, Ginny Thomas, I think she was I thought she was shopping that day." No, that's not going to. It's a crime. Now the question is, can it be enforced? There's no enforcement mechanism in Title 28 U.S. Code, Section 455. So it may be that it's as unenforceable as what appears to be the impossible unwillingness of the Justice Department to go after Donald Trump, even though the evidence, we are now well over a year after the events.
Right.
Did it take them this long? Now they're saying, we're waiting to present evidence to the public. And I'm sure that'll be very interesting, because the people that everyone will want to hear from will be the same people who say, I cannot answer that question because I have a Fifth Amendment right not to do so.
Do you have a Fifth Amendment right before Congress?
That's a very interesting question. And I think most attorneys would say you do have that right, and that it's because I do remember when Oliver North testified, and he did testify, and then when he was when he testified in Congress, he talked a lot. He did not claim any privilege whatsoever. And then when it came down to his criminal trial, it was ultimately his conviction was thrown out. Why? Because they figured that the potential jurors might have seen him testify in Congress, and therefore it tainted the amount of information that they had about Oliver North.
But it didn't taint H.R. Alderman's jury or John Ehrlichman's jury or John Mitchell's jury.
John, no. I don't remember what they said to the Watergate Committee. I don't remember if it was as detailed as what North did. I mean, North, I know him pretty well. And he, to this day, and all of his friends tell me the same thing. He does not believe he did anything wrong at all. And that's why he fought so hard. And I remember him telling me, if you don't fight to the bitter end, then you're not even sure you're innocent.
Wow.
Yeah.
He violated the Logan Act.
Yeah.
It's this country, it's Congress that decides who we fight, not Oliver North.
That's true. But the Logan Act has very specific pieces of that you need to violate in order to violate the Logan Act. And juries didn't think he had done so.
Right. So in the 50s, there were the Hollywood 10, the writers, the Hollywood writers who refused to testify before the House Un-American Activities Committee.
Right.
I think they pled the Fifth and were sentenced to they had to go to prison for pleading the Fifth. I think
they, well, I don't know what the laws were at the time, but I think they went to jail for contempt of Congress, not for violating the
okay.
And they did have contempt for Congress because they should have.
Right.
Right. For Joe McCarthy.
Well, do you think there's anything to get to the bottom of when it comes to January 6th? Do you think we
Well,
much know what happened? And is it settled that nobody at the top is going to pay a price for that?
I don't think it's settled. I think there's a lot of people, including a lot of Democrats running for office, including people we all know, who honestly believe they have the time to do this right, and that if they vote to proceed to convict any people through the committee structure, they don't have any formal authority, but they can make a recommendation to the Attorney General, who seems to be asleep, and that will somehow light a fire under Merrick Garland, and he will all of a sudden, in the waning days before the Senate and the House are both lost to the Democrats, he'll do something to prosecute. I mean, I think it's wishful thinking at this point. I just don't see it happening. I wish it did.